So what's going on with Iron Man? As a character, seems to be stalling out a bit. Let's talk about that. Hey, this is Perch. Iron Man's a funny character because prior to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Iron Man sort of struggled a little bit. I mean, there's a period where he was kind of one of the main Marvel characters, but he was never like the top Marvel character. It was always one, and it was never the same. But you had kind of the X Men, of course, dominated the Marvel scene for a long time. Then you had Captain America had his moments, and Thor had his moments under the Simonson run, and even Daredevil, had some attention during the Frank Miller era, and kind of these other times. And Iron Man, he had good story. I mean, he had Armor Wars, and he had big storylines. But as a character, he was always like the second best, or even just his title never sold like other books, and it always also felt like Marvel kind of avoided putting natural kind of talent on Iron Man. I always thought that you look at kind of Barry Windsor Smith and what he used to do for Wolverine and kind of some of those stories. Giving him a run or give him a long lead time, but let him do a pretty epic long Iron Man story would have been pretty nice. I think Layton did a great job. There are a lot of people who did great work on Iron Man, but there was always just kind of it felt like they didn't really know what to do with the character. Like they struggled a lot with how to handle him. So Iron Man, and then I think prior to you had the Matt Fraction time, which was in fairness, I'm not a big fan of a lot of what Fraction did at Marvel, but Fraction's Iron Man run did help. I mean, it did bring some attention to the character. There was some nice progress made during that time. But at the same time, it it never felt like they really pulled the trigger. And then the movie came out, and Iron Man was a big deal again. Robert Downey Jr. Kind of owned the role, made the role, and Iron Man was the centerpiece of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And then suddenly, it seemed like comics kind of got their act together, and you had some big attention with Iron Man. But again, it always felt like writers, I think Hickman got Iron Man and did a really kind of the kind of Iron Man's way of Tony's way of kind of looking at the world versus Steve's way of looking at the world was a big theme in the Avengers, and I thought that was quite good. I mean, both heroes, but Hickman has a way of taking characters and that view things very differently and have very different motivations, and then writing stories where you get to see the importance of both. And I think uh, it's a really good it's a really good ability of his, but not a lot of people share it. And then I think Reminder did some things with him and the Axis run, kind of set some ideas in place that never really paid off quite right. I mean, the challenge with that was you did this Axis thing and you flipped Tony to a kind of an evil version of himself, and then he escaped. He wasn't flipped back. It was Iron Man and Havoc and Sabretooth for some reason. And Sabretooth kind of stayed good in that time period. And that was, fine. The writers did some okay things with that. And then Havoc was good, but it felt like Bendis did not like that story or didn't want to deal with that story. So he made every kind of effort to kind of undo it or sabotage it or not take advantage of it kind of in his run when he was doing X-Men at the time. And then I think Remender was going to do a lot more with Havoc, but, didn't. Obviously he left Marvel at that point rather than segueing into the X-Men. And then Iron Man, they just wrote a bunch of stories where he was like, look, he's in California and he's drinking. And it's like, they're just very uninspired. So, then, we got the Bendis run of Iron Man. And that seemed like just a setup to, introduce Riri Williams. And kind of like, again, I mean, Bendis wrote Iron Man for the Avengers and then in his solo book. And it always felt like he didn't quite get Iron Man because he's always like putting him like, I'm thinking in science and I'm doing math and I've got complicated problems and here comes Ultra. It always felt like he wrote kind of a neurotic Tony, and he missed the kind of more pragmatic, determined Tony. I mean, the Bendis Tony Stark felt snarky, and it was like a watered down version of Robert Downey Jr. with some neurotic kind of tendencies, just rambling neurotic tendencies, kind of like my videos. But it didn't outline kind of the hero part of it. And this is, Fraction kind of did a little bit of that. Gillian did a little bit of that. There was just this element of forgetting what made, why was Tony a hero? I mean, because the way that a lot of these writers wrote Iron Man, you could have very easily just had him be a villain. And I think that was kind of the point of some of the writers, like, hey, with a few very small changes, he'd be a villain. And I think if you're taking that angle over time, it's not particularly interesting. And you readers are just like, okay, well, Willie or Woney, just make him a villain or make him a hero, but don't kind of do this like, oh, he's super smart and he's a hero, but the way he thinks could, it's the wrong way of looking at the problem character. So now we have Dan Slott doing Iron Man, and this run is forgettable in a lot of ways, and certainly the fans are forgetting it. You kind of worry about the characters. So now that Robert Downey Jr. is out of the MCU, I'm curious where they go with Iron Man, because they focused on him as kind of a centerpiece for a long time. He's gone now. I think Iron Man will slowly drift into being a back burner character. It has that feeling to it, because the Slott run is kind of taking, in many cases, the worst elements of a lot of previous writers that came before it. It's taking some of the existential crisis aspects of what Fraction did, but watered down. It's like, am I human anymore? I don't know. Am I just a copy? Is there, am I an AI walking around as a person? Kind of that was a kind of existential crisis that Matt Fraction also did, and Fraction actually did a lot of parts of that story well. We don't need to repeat it weaker, and that's kind of what we've got. And then, in addition to that, we've got the Bendis neurosis kind of talking pattern and speech that was not great. And now we've got a writer kind of aping that style and doing it in a pretty poor way. And then we've thrown in a little relationships like, hey, let's have him date the Wasp. Well, why not? And we'll throw that in there. And the result, and then we're going to just kind of take a bunch of current, like, hey, let's touch on social media and trolls and AI and machine learning, and let's just take a bunch of things that are currently in Wired magazine and Twitter and kind of throw them into the pot and stir them around. And there we go. And the result is just, it feels like a very kind of weak, watered down, what is the point, Tony, where your first storyline, it's like, hey, I'm going to make a big AI powered, virtual landscape, and villain took control and ran amok and caused Tony to virtually drink, and then I'm gonna. It's just there's no heart in these stories, and now it's like, hey, I'm dating the Wasp, so let's bring back Ultron, Hank Pym, and have a little battle there, and it's like, again, it's like, well, you had the greatest hits of Matt Fraction played back. And now you're getting kind of the greatest hits of kind of the, Ultron storyline from Bendis, but now with Hank Pym thrown in for good measure and just some kind of wacky dialogue. It's just, there's no heart to it. So what does Iron Man need to be a big seller and to actually start taking readers' attention back? I think I don't think it's that hard. I think, one, you got to ship on time. Meaning you can't have these kind of random, you'll get the comic when you get it kind of behavior that we have today. I think you've got to put an art team that really emphasizes the metal and the armor and that aspect of the character. And here's where I would go, and I would go find somebody over in Japan that doesn't draw super hardcore manga style, but has that kind of mech look to them, with a lot of detail in the art and a lot of complexity. Not the big eyes drawing, but the just kind of a very dense page. And I would have Tony Stark inventing things. I wouldn't try don't these writers come in and are like, hey, Tony Stark's always been a rich playboy. I know, let's make him broke. It's like, okay, why do you always have to flip the status quo to tell your story? It feels like a very, I've said this to writers and editors before, and I usually get a negative response, but it's like, you're going for the laziest possible storyline. You're going for, hey, it's we look, he's rich. Let's make him poor and have him struggle. Hey, he's super smart. I know. Let's make him dumb. Let's have him get a virus that makes him dumb. This will defy expectations. This will put him in a situation he's not comfortable with. That's fine every now and then as a story, but it can't be the go-to every arc to defy expectations by flipping what's always been. Because very soon you do that over a couple of years, and the what's always been tends to vanish. Tony Stark has been struggling as a playboy. If you've been following along, he lost his company and his money, following the Fraction Dark Reign storyline. That was a long time ago. This was more than 10 years ago. And it's like, oh, he's broke. Oh, he's going into space. He's got tons of money, but no, he's broke. He's broke. Oh, he sold some patents and he's broke. And eventually it's like, just stop. Are you trying to make the character relatable? I don't know what you're doing, but when you say, oh, hey, he used to be a playboy, it's like, when did he used to be a playboy? Like 20 years ago? Like, nobody remembers that anymore, because the new status quo is that he's just randomly rich and poor every other month. That's, you've completely taken away big aspects of the character in this kind of, let's see what it's like when he's not what he's normally like. It's like nobody knows what he's normally like anymore. We need a good run, a good, quote unquote normal run, to remind readers of what a normal looks like. What is normal for this character. Same thing with Fantastic Four. It's like, hey, we came back, and they've been gone for a while. Right, we're going to get back to the Baxter Building. There are a lot of good stories. I mean, Byrne during his run made the Baxter Building like almost a character of itself. Hey, an ambulance is coming by. I'll just pull over, and everybody's going to get a siren here for a second. Here's, I feel like I should, you don't make jokes about ambulances going by. I don't know what's going on there, but anyway. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. This ambulance driving like a maniac. If they keep driving this way, there's going to need another ambulance to pick up the people in this ambulance. Just saying. Sorry, I was wrapping this up, but the point is, the Fantastic Four comes back. You've got the, like, hey, let's get them back to the Baxter Building. Let's get this super high-tech science stuff that, we remember from the Fantastic Four in the past. It's like, oh no, the building's been sold to Spider-Man or gone, or who knows, but it doesn't exist anymore, or some bad guys have it. And so they're going to move into like a loft somewhere on Yancey Street. It's like, this is a bad idea. This is where editors need to come in and be like, hey, no, we're not going to do that. No, nobody wants to see, Reed kind of moping around with a giant beard and living in a loft in something, in Yancey Street, which has been kind of, had gentrification go on, and it's now like a hipster neighborhood. And I mean, it's like some of these comics, you've got these people. I know I flipped over the Fantastic Four, but it's the same writer. Same thing is true with Iron Man. You have these very, weird kind of settings. It is like, do you know what the world looks like? Did you basically walk outside your apartment, go have coffee at a, organic fair trade coffee place down the street, sit on that, the little metal table outside with your iPhone playing, Vampire Weekend, and look around you and see kind of the various hipsters walking around and the restaurant that's opening up across the street with their avocado toast appetizers, and go, yep, all the superheroes are going to live here. Is that what you did? Because that's a dumb idea. I'm just saying, don't, these characters have iconic pasts. It would be like a writer coming into Batman and saying, you know what, let's get rid of this Batcave and the mansion and Alfred, and we're going to have Bruce. Bruce is going to get a condo somewhere in Soho, and he is going to Uber. We're going to get rid of the Batmobile, and he's going to like be in his costume, and he's going to have a special Uber button on his bat belt, and he's just going to Uber to crime. That's what we're going to do. That's how Iron Man kind of feels. It's like, you gotta, at some point, you have to deliver on the iconic in order to defy expectations on the iconic. If you never have any kind of iconic run, then there's nothing to defy expectations on. You're just mucking about. So that's what I think. What do you think? What can we do to make Iron Man great again? I hate I hate that phrase so much. You guys have no idea. Um, I hate how it's the joke that, oh, I mean, it's going to 20 years from now. There's going to be comedies saying "make blank great again," and it's like, ah ha ha, remember that? And it's like, okay, uh, move on. What do you think? Leave me a comment below. Like, subscribe, click the bell for notification, tell a friend. I'm on Twitter at Comic Perch. Thank you for listening.